Today we have with us David Allen. I'm so excited to have the author of Getting Things Done and somebody who's had a profound impact on my life on this show. GTD, which is how Getting Things Done is known as, it's an entire methodology, not just a book. It's a phenomenon, a worldwide productivity phenomenon. And David is the creator of that. David has changed the world, not just in my life, but so many other people's lives, folks that I know of, that I've referred and recommended GTD to. And now he's got a brand new book, the Getting Things Done workbook out, just came out. And David, it's so great to have you on the show.
Stefan, thanks for the invitation. Always delighted to chat with you. Yay.
Yeah.
Let's go.
We get to hang out in Lisbon not too long ago.
Indeed.
The summer, and that was really enjoyable. You taught a keynote and a workshop after that. But before we dive into some of the core philosophies of Getting Things Done, or GTD, I wanted to get a sense from you of how this phenomenon has changed and morphed over the years that the book first came out, because it came out in what year?
2001, the first
2001.
edition, yeah.
And now we're almost 20 years later. A lot of changes technologically have happened. We're so much more distracted now with things like Facebook and our smartphones that just take us out of the moment, out of our flow state, and into just this dopamine addiction of the next shiny object. Like, how has GTD morphed through the changes that you've seen in the world?
GTD actually hasn't changed as such. I've understood it. I wrote a second edition because I wanted to keep the book more evergreen and also update it a little bit with just my understanding of the core elements of it and why it has produced such profound changes for people. Because, as you know, it's kind of, in a way, kind of simple stuff. Right. And so, but in a way, the principles are old as dirt, so they're not going to change. That if you're trying to keep more than 4 things in your head, your head's a crappy office and you're going to be driven by latest and latest. That's now just been validated cognitive science data. I sort of recognized that 35 years ago. So a lot of the essence of what GTD is about building the external brain, a trusted source externally, to free up your head to be able to do what it does best, which is make good intuitively driven, intelligent choices about your options.
Right. So you've said that our brains are factories, not warehouses. Something of that.
Yeah. They're really there to capture, process, and distribute stuff. That's how that's the essential core part of your brain as you evolved, was the limbic part of your brain to keep you alive on the savannah and the desert and the jungle, which is very present tense. It sees the 360 environment. It says, wow, it uses long-term memory and pattern recognition to say, that's a bear, there may be a snake over there, there's a berry in the tree, that's a thunderstorm coming, the baby's crying, as opposed to vibrations and light and sound. So the brain evolved to do very, very, very cool stuff. But you go to the store for lemons and come back with 6 things and no lemons. And so, what happened? Well, you tried to use your brain to remember, remind, prioritize, and manage relationships with things in past and future, which it does not do. It did not evolve to do that. What you must do, and this has really been shown up particularly in the last 100 years with knowledge work, where you actually have to think to figure out what to do, as opposed to having it evident in front of you for survival reasons, or just cranking widgets, in terms of what you're doing. So as soon as you have to think, that means there are algorithms you need to apply, or formulas, or thought processes you need to apply. So I recognized those back 30, 35 years ago as I began to do this work. So in a sense, those won't change. When we fly to Jupiter, whenever we do that, you still need an in basket. You still need to decide, gee, that's a thing we have attention on. What's the next action? Who's doing it? So you still have to define what the work is as it's coming to you, if it's not self-evident what it is. So that's the new, in a sense, kind of the new world we're in. But that's been true for the last 100 years for most people. And the big difference, Stefan, is that when I wrote when I first wrote the book, it was really targeted to the fast track professional, because they were the ones, experiencing initially the tsunami of email and just input and overwhelm and potential overwhelm about that stuff. What's different is now, as opposed to 10% of the population, 90% of the population needs this. Everybody's got that issue now, simply because of the stress of the stress of opportunity. All those dopamine producing things. Just the fact that your iPhone is in your pocket produces a dopamine rush, even if it's not ringing. You're wondering who might.
Yeah. Would you say that everybody has urgency addiction these days, or most people? It's not just a once in a while sort of phenomenon, or?
I don't know. I don't. I just. It's just anecdotal. Come on. I'm 73, Stefan, so I don't hang out with a lot of people, and I'm not doing major research. With all what the kids are doing and everything else. But just anecdotally, it's all the same. Come on. I think they had the same issue when the telephone showed up.
Yeah.
I think they had the same issue when the automobile showed up. Oh my God, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, because look at all these distractions. Oh my God, they can go make out in the park in a car. Oh my God, the world is coming apart. So in a sense, probably there's nothing new, in the sense that as technology has changed the nature, of our social engagements and opportunities, then it's always created that the two sides of the knife. How do are the two edges of the coin, right?
Yeah.
Don't shoot the media, by the way. Come on, if you know what you're doing, it's a great time to be alive. Come on, you and I are chatting. Where are you? In Southern California? I'm in Amsterdam. Come on, talking to each other, right?
It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. So
there's an expression that goes something like, money just amplifies who you already are.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think technology is kind of the same thing? Like,
exactly.
if you have a smartphone that has more computing power in it than the supercomputers of the 1960s, that just amplifies who you already are. If you are distracted, ineffective, knowledge worker, that just makes you more distracted and ineffectual.
That's actually true, and I'd say that in a large degree, that's true for the larger population. However, that said, the people who are most attracted to my work are the people who need it the least. They're already the people most proactive, most aspirational, actually most productive already. But they know systems work. They're just up to here. They just need more room, more space in terms of what they're doing.
That reminds me of the people who go to a therapist are the ones who need it the least, right?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about that is that if you are interested in being better, if you're a lifelong learner in some way, meaning you're always interested in kind of, what can I do better? What can I do more? How can I influence better? How can I either make more money? How can I be more relaxed? How can I be more fill in the blank, XYZ, right? If you have somebody who's already sort of wired that way, then the tech can be a huge benefit, because wow, come on, word processors and spreadsheets change the world. Come on, Excel runs 90% of the businesses probably in the U.S. Right? So, but
or maybe Google Sheets now.
Could be, but the idea of a
similar
spreadsheet, or the idea of a word processor, because I know the people that built those initially, and those were game changers. And those really, really made people a lot more productive. Not only that, they allowed you to be able to do a lot more cool stuff and be creative. Because see, a word processor works much more like your brain. Your mind likes to have ideas, then later on figure out what to do with them. But you're probably not old enough, Stefan, to remember erase tape and manual typewriters. That's how
I learned how to type on a manual typewriter. Yeah.
Did you use erase tape? That if you made a mistake, you had to put the tape in and click the wrong key again to erase.
I did.
Excuse me. So before
I know I look young, but I'm actually 48.
So yeah. Well, before you write anything, it damn well better be perfect, right? So now you can write anything you want. Write a crappy first draft. Great way to write anything, right? But now, because word processors allowed you to do that. in a different way. So there are tech things that I think that have made a huge difference for a certain percentage of the population of people, that's allowed them to do that. And I think that's probably still going to continue, though I haven't really seen a whole lot different. Though if you read Kevin Kelly's book, The Inevitable, he'll say AI and virtual reality are really going to change the world more than even the Industrial Revolution did. So
Yeah, I believe that.
So there's, that's TBD. We'll see. We'll see at what level that shows up. So anyway, there's a long non-answer to your.
No, that was a good answer. That was a good answer. But there's with AI and all the technological innovations that are coming, and Ray Kurzweil had said that in the last 100 years of technological evolution would actually fit into the next 20 years, because today's rate of change is so much faster than it was back 100 years ago, and it continues to accelerate. So it actually wouldn't fit into the next 20 years, the last 100 years. That's if the rate of change stayed constant. No, but it's continuing to accelerate even
Right.
more. So to fit in the next 12. So 12 years from now is going to look like a Star Trek episode.
And that's, Stefan, when you say what's different is the audience, and the need in the audience has changed. Because as you say, the speed of change is speeding up. And so the problem is, in that issue, is that when people don't have a self-management behavior set or set of best practices habitualized yet, how rapidly can they reconfigure their life when a significant change happens? See, your parents, certainly my parents, and maybe yours too, didn't have to really change their whole life and lifestyle and thought process and everything they were doing more than maybe half a dozen times. You and I have to do it weekly, right? so
Yeah.
And Kevin's, one of Kevin Kelly's points was, you'll never get really good at anything because everything's going to be constantly upgraded. Your refrigerator, your washing machine, your computer. Come on, I have to now update quicken. I used to say I can wait, 3 more iterations or whatever, but no longer, because one of those is not going to work with some of my old stuff. So everything, we're constantly going to have to be learning, constantly going to have to be keeping ourselves updated. So there are no laurels to rest on very long anymore.
Right. And it's not going to be sufficient to be a knowledge worker. You're going to have to be like a wisdom worker, bringing different creative disciplines together and merging them together in innovative ways, and doing stuff that isn't kind of rote or easy for an AI to do.
Well, not only that, I just read a statistic not long ago that, I forget by what year, but pretty soon 50% of the American workforce is going to be self-employed.
Yeah.
So if you're used to showing up at your work and being told what to do and getting a paycheck and leaving at 5, that world is gone, right? And so your ability to manage yourself, even just if you're working in the virtual companies now, because everything is so global, and like you and I, we're talking, my wife, who's running part of our business, is, as I'm speaking, talking on Zoom, to our staff, one in Medellin and one in Monterey and one in Denver, right? So, oh my God, that virtual world means you better manage your own life so that I can, here at 6 p.m., manage my life as well as I could anywhere else at any other time, if I need to do that. And so there are new demands and new opportunities, obviously, but new demands then to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. And, got to be your own boss these days. And that's a pretty big change for a lot of people.
For sure. And I think we've made a pretty compelling case for everybody listening to this episode implementing GTD.
Yeah, well, that's why I came up with it. I'm just the laziest guy you can imagine, and I like to stay clear in my head and have my brain clear enough to be open for internal and other opportunities, as opposed to being distracted and hung up on something that I haven't managed very well, that allows my attention to be distracted. So, that's 35 years of my professional career, was figuring out these algorithms about how to do that. So what's changed is just the need for it, the audience for it, and our sort of understanding of how important it actually is.
Yeah. So let's talk about what GTD is and what it isn't. So it's a productivity phenomenon, or it's a methodology. It's also a book, but it's not about habit formation. It's not about like distractedness. Although we do suffer from a lot of distractedness. Like what is GTD and what isn't from your standpoint? And these are
And
just
it,
my
yeah,
ideas, so you
to a,
can correct me if I'm wrong.
to a large degree, and there are other subtleties that lie inside of that, but to a large degree, it's about stopping using your head as your office and building externalization of your commitments, what has your attention, and being able to model or manage a set of inventory of appropriate maps for your life to orient yourself in space and time anywhere you are, no matter what's happened. What do I need to know? What do I need to be aware of? How do I then, integrate all that, sort of get the gestalt of it, and make a trusted choice about what I do at any point in time? So it's
Right. So
really
it's like
about,
you have a second brain, essentially.
well, yeah, if you have a calendar, you already do,
Yeah.
right? So you can't, either your head's the place to hold stuff or it's not. I mean, I challenge anybody to intellectually justify halfway in between, right?
Yeah. Because
And
if you
that,
have a system that you can't trust because you've separated some of it out into multiple systems, or you're not using it consistently, then you default to using your brain, and then you don't
yep,
have a trusted system.
yep. And most people don't trust either their head or their lists.
Well, that's a big problem.
Sorry, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying, look, that's the way your brain is. That's how it works, right? So I just figured out it's in a sense a mechanical process, pretty subtle, but it is a mechanical process. What's got your attention right now? Should I get divorced? Should I fix this tooth right now? Oh God, what do I do about my kid's education? What do I do about the dog that my daughter wants? Should I take yada yada yada?
Yeah.
And most
In
people don't
fact,
have.
one of the things you had us do was to do a mind sweep as part of the workshop to get that all out of our heads onto a paper or into like an Evernote or whatever, so that we could clear our minds and get into that state of mind like water that you talk about.
Yeah, and it's not just write it down. That's the first important step, is identify what has your attention. But then you have to go through a thought process about those things you write down. Why'd you write it down? What does it mean to you? What are you going to do about it? What commitment do you have about it? What's the next action you might need to take to move the needle on it toward closure? And then where are you going to park the reminders of that? So there's really a capture, clarify, and organize critical sort of 3-step process that you need to do if you want to get your head clear, right? And I don't care how much mindfulness training you do. If you need cat food, and if you haven't written it on a post-it on the fridge that somebody's going to go get cat food, it'll still pop in your head when you're trying to meditate. Jeez, So I'll wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and cat food will take up the same brain space in your head as I need to write a business plan. If you don't externalize it and don't go through this process of, well, how would I clarify exactly what that means? So I just discovered the way to essentially vacuum clean your head and then make sure you could keep it clear, and then use your head, to utilize its ability to be then making good intuitive choices off your options. You don't want your brain to remember what errands you need to run. You want to look at the 6 errands you already decided you need to run, and then make a choice about which ones you want to do today, right? So
Yeah.
that's a huge change. Most people confuse capture with organize. Oh, let me write down everything I need to do. Oh my God. And then they look at something called mom or bank or cut. It's like, oh my God. And so they don't really go through enough of the algorithm of what you need to do to really get stuff off your mind.
Right. Because you have to identify, is this a next action or is it an entire project? And a project you define as anything that's more than one action.
Yeah.
Is really clarified things for me. That was very helpful. I learned that over a decade ago.
Well, that's huge. Well, Stefan, if you did that, I mean, very few people are even come close to having a complete or current and a well-defined project list. That's one of the most powerful things you could do if you want to surf on top of your game.
Yeah. Yeah. And then putting it in that trusted system and keeping it, fresh and up to date. That's a game changer. So I have a couple of trusted systems I'd love your feedback on. One is I use Things, which is by Cultured Code for the Mac and also for iOS, and they
Hmm.
do sync with each other. So that's really awesome. And it does support a lot of the capabilities of GTD, like being able to assign a context to things, to items. So I can say this is at office, at errand, at home, at phone, etc. And then I can filter down to just see the next actions that are in a particular project or just across the board, all next actions that are in that context of phone calls or
Yeah.
errands. Again, huge game changer. Um, I my problem though is I don't keep it up to date. I don't do enough of the organizing and processing of these actions. So even though they're mostly written as verbs and they're not just like mom sort of kind of cryptic items, but most of my items don't have the context associated with them. I haven't identified if it's deep work or shallow work. I have tags for those as well. A bunch of things haven't been done. So it's not a system I would proudly show you and say, look at what I've done. But at least I have a trusted system. I don't have post-it notes everywhere anymore, backs of envelopes with notes scribbled on them. All that's gone. And that was terrible. that was a horrible time a decade and a half ago. How I and before like that is just crazy. And the other thing I use is Evernote. So anything that I'm capturing that is a note for just reference purposes. I'm taking notes for like I'm at an event and it's a really great session. Those things will go into Evernote. Actually, I use a Remarkable tablet to handwrite, and then that um, the Remarkable tablet can OCR the scribbles into text, and then I can load that into Evernote. So that's my system. It's Things, Evernote, and the Remarkable tablet. And I'm curious if that's a pretty good set of tools, or am I missing? Oh, and of course, Google Calendar with the Calendar app. I actually use the Fantastical app. I find that to be better. And then that syncs in with my Google Calendar. That's my system or tool set. What do you
Anything
think?
on your mind about any of that?
Well, I would. I do have the question around like what do I put into the calendar versus what do I put into things, or do I double things up? How do I synchronize the two? I know there you can link items together that are like in between Evernote and things using links and stuff. So there's some sophisticated things that I could do that I haven't been doing. But yeah, I guess that's a good starting point. Like, do I double things up, put it in, if it's a date-based thing, do I put it in the calendar and do I put it into things, or just put it into the calendar or just into things? Well, actually, I know I don't put it just into things. If it's a date-based thing that needs to be done on such and such date, or it's a meeting that I've got to have on that date and I need to block out that time, I'm going to put it on my calendar. But
How
yeah,
long
what are
would
your
it
thoughts?
how long would it take you to look through all of that and to make sure you're
Uh,
not missing anything?
oh my goodness. Yeah. So this is why I don't do regular weekly reviews. And I know this is the cardinal sin of GTD. If you don't do weekly reviews, this is my take on it. You're not really doing GTD.
Oh, no,
But
you just don't have a clear head. Well, your head's trying to do a weekly review all the time if you're not doing a one.
that's a
So
that's
you,
that's
you
a good way of
everybody
putting it.
says this is extra work. I'm sorry, extra work is not doing it. Then you're trying to do it all the time and not finishing. What should I
Yeah.
be doing? What should I be doing? Wait a minute, what am I missing? What am I missing? Like, yeah, oh God, what have I? I feel like I'm. And so the ambient anxiety you are used to is just keeping you from moving to the next level of game. So
Mm.
that's your addiction to your ambient anxiety. You're fine with it.
Fair point.
Sorry, you asked. That's the
Yep.
problem. But I use all those things. I use Evernote. I use it just for reference. I don't use it for any reminders. But it's a great reference tool just for cutting and pasting stuff to places you might want to see again. good
Yeah.
wines, good restaurants I might want to go to, fun jokes, all kinds of great stuff in there. I got
Yeah.
all kinds of lists of all kinds of things everywhere, all over the place. I just don't have any attention on those. Those are parked somewhere that in case I need it, I know where to find it.
Yeah.
That's,
And you have to have tags properly set up in
no,
Evernote.
forget
Find it.
tags. Tags are
Really?
way too much trouble. Yeah. Nobody, you'll do tags when your inner geek shows up on a rainy Saturday, but you're not going to use them on Monday when the fire hose of your day is hitting you in the face.
Really? Because I took a course from Charles Bird. I don't know if you know Charles.
Mm.
He's he's a cool guy, and I've had him on this show, and we talked all about Evernote. And he's got this really awesome, sophisticated tagging system that allows him to find anything in Evernote within about 3 or 5 seconds max. Anything, and he's got, I don't know, 30,000 notes in
Yeah.
Evernote. It's pretty
And by the way,
impressive.
yeah, no. It depends on your personality type. The OCDers are going to love that and make that work. The ADDers won't bother getting past about 30 minutes of that. Going to be too many clicks, too many things you have to do, too many inserts you have to trust that you're actually going to see everything that tag should be tagged to, right? So
What if you have OCD and ADD?
well, then you've got a
That's
problem on
fun.
both. You got a problem on both ends. Well, not a problem. It's just, hey, come on. It needs to be as simple as possible. You just need to know what you're not doing right now,
Yeah.
Stefan. And it's, by the way, you're way ahead of the planet just in terms of everything you've done already and what you're doing. But if you want to know, is there a next level of game? Yeah, there is. And
Yep.
that's just but it's still customizing. You need to try it. Well, am I still willing to do that 3 months from now? So that's the key. Yeah. Oh, a lot of this stuff is fun and it's easy to and said, wow, I could connect this and I could connect that. That's great. But are you still using this on a day-to-day basis to keep your life straight and keep your head clear? If you are, keep it in your act. If you're not, try something else or simplify it a little bit more in terms of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's and that's the big problem. Things is great. I know I work with uh, uh, I've worked with several fairly well-known people that wound up using things just because it was simpler and it was easy to use, whatever, than OmniFocus or some of the other iOS, things that have been built out there in terms of list managers. But they're still very labor intensive. You still have to connect in with the calendar. You have to connect in with email. Those things don't do that. You have to do that yourself. So you have to figure out what is your overall Gestalt system, and how do I work that? And sorry to say, there's no technology that yet does that. So you have to know what the thought process is. And you have to be concerned about, why is this on my mind again? Where should I put that? Is that the right place to put it? Am I looking at it as regularly as I ought to make sure it gets off my mind? And even I need it regularly. As a matter of fact, one of the things I was doing this afternoon was just going and curating some of my old databases just because I'd thrown stuff in there. I hadn't looked at it for a long time. And I thought, it's time to kind of clean up. I'm at a little bit of a hiatus in my life with some big projects we just finished. And so I'm using this time to clean up and to curate and to look back at, okay, is this the system I need? And, how simple is it? How elegant can I make it? So that's an ongoing process. So I think that's you don't stop organizing because things change by the nature of time. You have stuff in your drawers, by the way, that belong there when you put them there. They don't belong there anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Why? Things have changed. So you don't finish organizing. Organizing is just simply making sure that where things are match what I think they mean to me, but what they mean to you changes. So you're going to have to constantly keep, when in doubt, clean a drawer. When in doubt, find something. If you're not sure what to do, come on. I've got an, as you do too. Probably anybody listening or watching this has a weird electronic gadget drawer.
Yes, mine's right over here.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, what is this? Well, the thing died, but the charger, I might need that. Oh my God. Or I don't know what the hell this is. I just found it, but it looks important. This might need to be plugged into something. Or oh my God. Or you put together some IKEA furniture and you wound up with 3 extra pieces that should have been in there. It's like, oh my God, is it going to fall apart when I sit on the couch? Well, what? So I got one of those drawers. That's fine. You know,
Did
it's just that's where all those things are. It's not spread all over my universe.
right. And then do you periodically purge that stuff? Like
Yeah. When I can't
like
get anything else in there, then I
spark
say,
joy process with
yeah,
Marie
no. I
Kondo?
just like I can't. I got something else I want to put in there. I don't have room. It's like okay, it's come on, clean the drawer.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you familiar with Marie Kondo?
Yeah,
Yeah. Have you tried her approach of like
I've
holding the
I've
book
li-
and
I
reading
live
it?
her. I've lived her approach for 35 years. Called if you don't need it, throw it away.
Yeah.
Keep your life as minimal as you need to. Does it turn you on to keep it? If not, I mean, I don't
We've got a
actually. I
pretty big
haven't.
pile of books there right next to you. That's like
Yeah,
40 books there.
those are all of my books in all the different languages they've been translated into. I just need one place to put them.
Wow.
I was gonna throw them all away, and Catherine said, at some point you might want to just make sure you have the archive of at least one copy of all of those. So
That's a good that's good
that's what it
advice.
is. But I don't have many others. As a matter of fact, we give all of our books away once we read them.
Awesome. So what's one of your favorite books that isn't one of yours?
A book called The Antidote.
What's that about?
Berkman is his name. It's happiness for people who can't stand positive thinking.
Is that you? Somebody who can't stand positive thinking?
Well, when you read this book, the book is much more sophisticated than the title. It's a great title, by the way. But it's like he's pushing up against the rah rah sis boom bah. Don't have any negative thoughts. It's all positive. It's all whatever. And so he goes back to the Stoics. He goes back to a lot of stuff about the necessity to accept current reality in whatever form it is. Otherwise, what you resist, you're stuck with. So there's a whole lot of that. It's brilliant stuff. So I totally agree with him. It's one of the few books my wife reads, and as she was reading it, she was just laughing out loud. He's a great writer, and it's fabulous. So it's for those who have ears to hear. It's a really good book to read. He doesn't put down positive thinking and future thinking and any of that kind of stuff. He's just talking about people who try to pretend that not dealing with reality in whatever form it shows up. You're the church that was the rah 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 went bankrupt 2 years later. There's a lot of a lot of examples he uses that makes it pretty evident that you need to be a bit more mature in your thinking and your acceptance of reality. And then you can use all that other stuff in a much more elegant way. So that's a lot of, in a sense, what getting things done is about, because a lot of people resist it because, oh my God, do you mean I have to write down everything's got my attention? Oh my God. Yes, it's called current reality, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And people get mad at me for their list. I'm going, excuse me, ain't my list. Whose list is this?
And it usually has at least 100 things on it.
At
Like
least.
just when you do a mind sweep, you might have 100 to 200 things that you jot down in a single session. Yeah. So how many books do you have that are not yours there currently?
Not many.
You still have mine? You still have Google Power Search?
No.
Okay.
Actually, yes, I do. It's in the living room. Yeah, because
Okay.
I still want to review it. So that's sitting there. I still want to thumb through that one. But otherwise,
That's a good one, because if you use Google, it's going to be very helpful for you.
I have someone, you can't know it all. Leading in the age of deep expertise. This, I get a book a week of people that want me to endorse it, read it, whatever. So some of these I just keep until I have a moment when I can look around and see actually what it is, if I'm interested in it.
That's a great title for that book.
Yeah.
Can't know it all. Yeah, so true. All right. So do you schedule time for your learning, like for upskilling and...
I don't schedule time for anything unless I have external commitments.
Gotcha. So if it's not an external commitment, it just goes into your trusted system and what things, or what do you use?
No, we still use IBM Notes, which is now HCL Notes, I believe. They just bought it from IBM, the old Lotus Notes. We still use that. And a friend of mine designed software kind of based on my methodology that sits inside of or on top of Lotus Notes that reconfigures it as close as anything else I could find out there that actually, matches to my stuff. So that's what I still use.
Okay. What's the name of that plugin or that tool inside of
eProductivity.
E-productivity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because some things about the Things app are a little frustrating for me because it's not totally GTD kind of compliant. Like there is a someday, or no, there's a, um, what is, yeah, there's a someday, but there isn't waiting for inside of Things. And I'm like, oh, I really wish there was a waiting.
Can't you create a category?
Yeah, I created a tag for that. But if I just, I'm a stickler for details, and I wanted it over in the left-hand bar next to someday. I want a waiting for. I just want that. Anyways, but yeah. So you don't schedule your learning. You don't schedule time for, I don't know, downtime or whatever. Or
Well, I do all kinds of stuff that's not on any of my lists.
okay,
I have the freedom to do that because of my list.
right.
You know, can I take a nap? Let me look. Yeah. Nap time, power nap. I'm out. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Do you take naps?
you won't see nap on my calendar, but I take them
Yes.
almost every day if I can.
So how long do you take a nap for, and
Anywhere
what
from
is
20 minutes to 2 hours, depends on how long I can and whether I stay asleep.
okay?
Better than a cup of coffee in the afternoon for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I just interviewed a guy named Alex Pang, and he wrote a book called Rest, and he's all about power naps and taking vacations and even sabbaticals and stuff. That was a fun interview. So yeah, I don't take enough naps for sure. I maybe take one every month or so, or maybe two a month, but not anywhere close to once a day.
I didn't do it either until about, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when I hung out with Tony Schwartz. You know, a friend of mine and Tony wrote, some really cool books about that and the Energy Project and about what it was. And he'd done a lot of research on that. So I said, I should probably try that out. And I did, and it worked. It was fabulous.
That's awesome. Um, Speaking of smart friends and just colleagues, people that you know, people maybe that you've coached, who has the most impressive GTD setup and adheres to it and has had like life-changing benefits from it? I'm sure you've got plenty of case studies of celebrities and powerful people who swear by GTD and have made fortunes because of it. Anyone you want to share?
I don't know if it's say made fortunes by it, but there are two people who come to mind because they've been public about saying it. One is Howard Stern, changed his life. He would tell you that.
Yeah.
And Howard, he would tell you it allowed him to keep his businesses, Sirius Radio and all that other stuff, and still learn to paint and do some other things he wanted to do. He was about to give it all up, and then found, hey, this sort of created a lot more room for him to be able to do cool things he wanted to do. And another guy comes to mind, Eric Anderson. Eric built a company called Space Adventures, where you could pay him $50 million and he'd put you on the space station if you could pass all the tests to do that. So, that's still there. And Eric said changed his life and it allowed him to do tons of really cool stuff. So Eric's quite an interesting guy. So
did you ask him for a free ticket to the space station?
No, not interested. I won't even bungee jump. Come on. Who needs it?
Oh, funny. Yeah. I mean, our planet's pretty awesome. Like why should we try and get to Mars to be in some desolate, dead place when we've got all
That's okay. Everybody's got their own thing. So why not?
Yeah. Okay. So let's distinguish a few core concepts of GTD for our listeners. So what exactly is a next action versus just an action that you would take? Like why does it need to be the next action? What's so powerful about that?
Well, if you haven't discovered the next action, they're still thinking and decision making. You haven't finished yet about your commitment.
Right.
So that finishes your thinking. If you haven't decided what the next action is on mom's birthday, or increase your bank credit line, or whether you want to get a divorce or not, it's hung up. And there's still thinking and decision making you haven't done yet about it.
So you've blocked the critical path. You could have thought through all these other steps in the process, made a nice Gantt chart, but if you haven't clarified what the next action is, you're kind of paralyzed to see that project through, right?
Well, you're paralyzed if some part of you is freaked out by the thinking and decision making you resist doing about what to do about it. But anybody who's got a Gantt chart or a critical path chart or whatever, just pull it out right now and say, what are all the moving parts that you actually could move on right now? And what would moving look like? And where does it happen? And who's doing it? And you're going to hear a lot of very sophisticated people go, oh, duh, yeah. This is really, yeah. It's like, oh, come on. I spent thousands of hours with some of the best and brightest that just resisted the process of the next action thinking.
Yeah. Right. Now, some folks are really into the tactics of GTD, all the different things of identifying the waiting fors and the someday maybes and assigning contexts and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of tactical like elements to GTD.
Yeah.
And that can kind of stymie some people from getting past the mental roadblocks that they're facing. Like there's a mindset of GTD. Would you agree?
Not sure what you mean by that. Yes, there is a way to think about what's got my attention, what's my desired outcome, what do I need to do about it, and where do I park a reminder if I can't do it right now. So that's sort of the core thought process of this, but that can take on a lot of different levels. What has your attention? See, once you pay attention, Stefan, to what has your attention, you'll find out what really has your attention. So there are things that have your attention right now that you're not aware of until you actually clear up what has your attention right now. And then you go, oh, wait a minute. What I really need to do is.
Yeah. That was very meta, by the way. That little 20-second blip there is so tweetable. That's gold right there. And it's like having awareness about your awareness, having attention about your attention.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, come on. Isn't that what all the mindfulness stuff is about?
Yeah. Yeah. And so if somebody is into all the tactics of GTD and they're not into mindfulness, they're not into improving their awareness or being more mindful, more intentional, kind of.
Well, come on, give them a break. If they've done at least any of that, that moved them way forward on that game.
Sure.
If they even were willing to have a waiting for list. Oh my God, what are you waiting for? Oh God, I'm waiting. Oh yeah, I ordered that and it hasn't come yet. Oh,
but they might just be more efficient and not more effective in their life. They might be like what.
What's the difference between efficient and effective? What's the difference between efficient and effective?
If you're efficient at doing something that doesn't mean anything, is not really adding to the value of.
So tell me how effective is not efficient.
Okay, so I think effective does have efficient in it.
Effective is efficient toward a higher horizon.
Yes.
It's all efficiency. How well are you doing your life purpose, by the way?
I think
it's an efficiency. Is that an efficiency game?
Yeah.
Pushback? Give me any pushback on that. Okay. It's all efficiency. It's all. So what are you here to do? How well are you doing it?
So if I don't focus on the 50,000 foot view, as you call it, if I'm at the runway level and trying to improve my day-to-day productivity, but I'm not really questioning why am I here, who can I serve, how can I add massive value.
You could be more efficient.
Yeah. So let's say that I just focused on my SEO consulting business without doing this podcast, for example. I wouldn't be revealing as much light in the world, I don't think.
Right. So you're being efficient. So you're being efficient toward producing more light in the world.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Okay. So maybe it's just
no. It's a little bit. It's a tiny little rant about the people that put efficiency up against effectiveness. I go, I understand what they mean, but they don't understand what effectiveness means. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had that argument.
Yeah. Yeah, what I'm thinking of, maybe a better way to articulate this is think of the concept of strategy versus tactics. Because in the art of war, Sun Tzu said, "Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat." I love that quote.
Yeah.
I use it all
And
the time.
strategy is tactics for a larger game. Come on. They're all just graduated levels of what's your vocabulary.
Hmm.
Making a phone call is a goal.
Sure, but not necessarily a meaningful one unless it's the right phone call at the right time to the right person.
Yeah, well, come on. Everybody's doing the best they can with what they know at the time. So it is quite meaningful to them, to the fact that they did it. They may have been doing it to avoid something else, which is okay, but at least they're efficiently avoiding something else.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a good segue to the concept or the idea of procrastination. And a lot of us procrastinate. I think it's pretty much human nature. So, how does GTD tackle that? Um,
Well, a lot of people procrastinate because they're afraid of engaging. There's a fear there's a fear of being out of control, and there's a fear of also stepping up to something that's bigger than what you think you might want to do. So if you read Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art, which is a great book, that you'll tend to procrastinate or resist engaging in something that's closest to your soul. So that's one way to think about it, but in a way, it's still the same thing. Called, I'm not sure exactly what the next action is, so I'm going to avoid doing anything about it because I don't want to feel out of control about this. So the next action thinking, believe it or not, in a strange way, you can come way down to the ground level, that deciding what's the very next step you would need to take. Pick up phone, punch numbers, see who answers, and ask them a dumb question.
yeah.
So that would keep you from procrastinating if you got it down to that level of granularity, because all those next actions are relatively easy to do, and you actually like doing a lot of actions. Those are your better days when you actually do a bunch of stuff. You feel good about that. But you need to get it down to the stuff to do, and you need to get it down to the doing level. Is that a phone call to make, an email to send, a stamp to buy at the store? Is that God knows, what are all those things? But that helps. And also, hey, why are you on the planet? What are you doing? You know, uh, who, when Stefan really shows up, what's he going to be doing? What's he going to look, sound, or feel like? And that may then give you a little bit, and the more confidence you have, the more affirmational you are about that. I can do that, and that's possible for me to do. The more you're willing to probably engage in that book you need to write, or that person you need to ask out, or that risk you need to take, to do all those kind of things. So any and all of those factors will probably come in for many people, for all of us, in terms of things we tend to avoid.
So, how often would you recommend our listener review these higher level horizons of focus, like the 50,000-foot
As
view
soon as you
and the
need to get
40,000?
them off your mind.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm playing with my little puppy, we just got a little puppy 2 weeks ago. When I'm playing I don't want to be thinking about my strategies. I want to have thought about them. So I'm free to play with my puppy.
Yeah. So, how often do you contemplate your 50,000-foot view? Like, actually, why don't you quickly recap what your horizons of focus
Yeah,
are?
well, I call them Horizon 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and ground, because that's more universal than the U.S., because the U.S. calls the first floor the ground floor.
Yeah.
But anyway, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 is purpose and principles. Why are you on the planet? What really matters to you? That's that level horizon of commitment that you have. Then more operational than that, level 4 would be, what's your vision of that being done wildly successfully? What would it look, sound, and feel like if you were actually doing that purpose and expressing that purpose out there in the world? And then horizon 3 would be, okay, what do you need to accomplish or finish in order to make that vision actually come about over the next 3 to 24 months? So that'd be the level 3 or horizon 3, which are goals, objectives usually. Horizon 2 would be all the things you need to maintain at some level of quality so you get there. How's your finances? How's your health? How's your relationships? How's your spiritual life? How's your dog? How's your fun factor? How's your yada in your companies? How's staff development? How's asset management? How's finances? How's, I don't know, whatever all the things are you need to do so that you can get where you want to go. And then horizon 2 would be, that's horizon 2, where all the things you need to maintain. and focus on and manage. And then horizon one would be all the things you need to finish about it. Oh, I got to get tires on my car, my vacation coming up. I need to hire the vice president of marketing. I need to get a dog for my daughter. And, there's all the projects you have. Most people have 30 to 100 of those. And then you have horizon, the ground horizon, which is all the actions you need to take about any of those moving parts of any of those other things.
Yeah. I think you used to call that the runway, right?
Yeah. Emails to send, stuff to buy at the store, stuff to talk to your life partner about, documents you need to draft, websites you need to surf, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
And most people have, 100 to 200 of those right now, just in terms of real time. So those are the different horizons of commitments. If you want to say, well, what do we need to getting things done? What do we need to get done? You fulfill your purpose, make your vision happen, handle your goals and your objectives you need to make that happen, maintain all the stuff appropriately in terms of all the things to keep your life balanced and healthy so you move in the direction you're going. And then all the projects you need to finish about all that and all the actions you need to take about any of those kind of things. You want to know what to get done? That's it. How you doing? I couldn't get it any simpler, Stefan, than that. I just tried to reduce it to as much as I could about what it is that we're all engaged in and the complexity of these lives that we're living. And that's about it.
So how often should we be reviewing all those different horizons? Is it part of the weekly review? Is it once a month? Is it every single day?
As often as you need to get them off your mind. How often should you and your life partner talk about your lifestyle and career and where you're going? Often as you need to.
Yeah.
Right. How often should you look at all the projects you have? That's probably the weekly review. It kind of ties to the project level horizon. How often should you review your job description if you have a boss or, trying to manage your company or trying to hire people and figure out your org chart? Well, that's horizon 2. And you probably need to do that as often as things have changed and people have different job descriptions and roles and accountability.
Yeah. So when we were when we were having dinner in Lisbon, and I was telling you that I am terrible with my weekly review, and I fell off the wagon. I don't think I've ever come back on. I do occasionally do a weekly review, but it's so overwhelming for me because I have over 5,000 next actions in my things database that it scratches the surface just trying to block out 1 or 2 hours of time to do a weekly review. I feel just buried and I feel like I'm drowning. It doesn't feel good to do the weekly review, so I don't do it. And what's the secret here to
how conscious do you want to be?
I want to be super conscious. I want to be 100% present and aware and intentional.
Well,
So
then you
need
to, you've been to those rah kind of seminars. You need to go through those 5,000 things and go, no, someday maybe, no, and skinny it down. Come on.
To how many?
As many as you can tolerate to look at on a weekly basis and say, how you doing?
Should I declare next action's bankruptcy, like declare email bankruptcy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because one piece of advice,
just go dump Evernote. Just go dump things in Evernote and start again.
Okay.
With real stuff. That's it. That's a way to do it.
Well, you told me years and years ago, maybe it was a decade ago, to create a DMZ folder because I had this huge inbox in my email and I wanted to get to inbox 0, but I felt like it was impossible. I had thousands and thousands of emails. You gave me this pearl of wisdom. You said, drag it everything in the inbox, drag it into a DMZ folder, demilitarized zone, and start fresh. And all the stuff that you had in the inbox, it's still there. You didn't delete it, but it's in a DMZ folder, and you start implementing the new techniques from this day forward on the inbox. And it worked like a charm. It was amazing. So he's kind of suggesting doing the same thing, but with my to-do list.
Sure. You're not doing them anyway.
Yeah. Fair point. There are some things on there, plenty of things on there that have been there for over 5 years.
That's okay. As long as every 5 years you look at it and say, should they still be there? So I'm not saying dump everything. I'm just saying make sure you not have your attention on any of those things that you might want to have attention on.
Yeah.
Like, here's all the cool and potentially creative or crappy ideas I've ever had in my life, and just make a huge pile of that. That's fine. Just some part of you needs to make sure that you don't have anything lurking in there that's got your attention.
Yeah.
And that you have some level of commitment to curate that on some regular recursion. That's all.
Okay. And
So that's where I disagree with Marie Cohn. Not that she would. I don't know if she would disagree with me. I've never met her. But I'm not saying you should necessarily minimize everything. I just said you need to categorize it so some part of your brain is not hooked into it.
yeah. Yeah. So the Marie Kondo approach is, if it doesn't spark joy, delete it, like get it out of your life. But what you're saying is you could just park it somewhere as long as it doesn't have your attention.
Sure.
Okay.
Otherwise, the web would have blown everybody up to begin with.
Yep. So what does the weekly review look like? Is it an hour? Is it a half hour? Is it 2 hours? Like,
Depends on how complex your life is, how much stuff has changed in the last week or so in terms of, and how current your system is to begin with.
Okay.
It could be anywhere from half an hour to 2 hours to do it.
Okay. So somewhere in that ballpark. And what all goes into the weekly review? I know
the first thing you look at your calendar. What's coming up? Look at the last 2 weeks. What have you? Oh my God, that reminds me. And then look at everything coming forward to you. It says, oh God, I need to make sure you've done at least that. How long does that take? And by the way, is that a bad thing to do? Is that an unnecessary thing to do? Grow up. Locate yourself in space and time, right? In terms of all that stuff, that's about the simplest thing you can do. And it's the first thing I do.
Okay.
Right? And that would take you however long that takes you to do that. What, 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Okay. Right? So you also review the project list. You review the waiting for
all my lists. Mark off anything that's been finished or anything that's changed. Then I go back through going through every single list and to be able to do that. And then I go back through and say, God, anything else happened in this last week or so since I did my last review that I haven't really clarified yet that needs to be added to the project list. And then what's the next action of that? And then I make sure there are next actions on all of my projects, because many times the action's been completed. I mark that off, but I haven't had time to figure out what the next one is. So I need to go back through and make sure that all that's clear and clean.
Yeah. So when you review these lists, like let's take the someday maybe list as an example. So the someday maybe list, you review it, but with the intention of, I'm going to see if there's anything that should be deleted off that list. I'm going to see if there's anything that should be moved from a someday to the projects list or turned into a next action.
Yep.
Okay. So it's not just a review process, it's a review with an outcome.
Yeah, this is not a static process. It's quite a creative process because it's going to get you to think about stuff. Stuff landed in there because of something that went on in your mind, but things have changed. And so it's a way to sort of recalibrate, refocus.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I have a lot of tabs and windows open in my browser, and I'm wondering, where does that sort of, I'm sure this is something that a number of my listeners have some similar situation, right? Lots of tabs or windows. Is that something that you would also review as part of your weekly review and then do something with? Because it just seems
I don't do that, so I don't know.
Okay.
I have no tabs open except whatever one tab I'm working with. I have nothing on my desktop.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I park things there temporarily, but then once I figured out I moved it to where it goes in my reference system, it's clean. So I have a clean desktop.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I don't, and I need to. And I also need to be just in one tab. There's an app, I forget what it's called. Well, there's a few versions, a few different options to choose from. I think one of them is Desktopple, and it will hide everything other than the current window. All the different applications that are running in the background, even the top bar with file edit view and all that, it all gets blackened out, and then all you see is, let's say, the Word document you're working on. That's a pretty cool idea.
Why do you need an app for that? That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of a superhuman in terms of productivity. So I don't know that there are very many of my listeners or just regular.
But why? Why do you keep all that stuff open?
Well, why do people have more than one thing sitting on their physical desktop? like multiple papers or business cards or whatever. They're triggers, and we're not perfect
They're triggers they're
animals.
not doing shit about. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
So how do you recommend somebody who feels like a little overwhelmed that, okay, I've got not a clean desk, I don't have a clean desktop on my computer either, I don't have a clean work environment on my computer when I've got one app open to work on. I also have 20 other apps running in the background, and let's say the browser is one of those 20 apps that has 30 or 50 tabs open. This is not atypical. So what do you tell that person to do to get a handle on all of it? Because it does feel overwhelming to like
well,
just
come on.
clean it all up.
The whole world is available to you through Google right now. What's the difference between that and you want 15 tabs? Fine. Do you have any attention on that? The problem is whether you think you should be doing something with or about those tabs. You could pull those tabs up at any time. I usually have, 15, 16 programs running in the background. I can flip between Lotus Notes or IBM Notes, or I can go to Chrome, and I can go to Quicken, I can go to Evernote, I can go to whatever it is that I've been working on.
Right.
Those are still alive and well. So what? I just don't have open tabs telling me you would, could, should, need to, ought to do something about this.
Okay. So what you're saying is to take all those open tabs and open apps,
Just close them up.
and anything
Open what you need when you need it.
Okay. So what
It's called bookmarks. It's called
yeah.
bookmarks.
Yeah. Yeah. I use an application called Pocket. Are you familiar with Pocket?
No.
Oh, I love this app. It's getpocket.com. And it allows my team to see all my bookmarks as well. And I can add tags to the bookmarks. So I do that. And then my team uses that information to determine what tweets to write for me as me. And so stuff gets tweeted throughout the day that's from me, supposedly, but it's my team writing it. It's based on what's in my pocket. And same with my newsletter. I get my team writing interesting copy for my weekly newsletter to my list, and I don't have to write that stuff myself. I don't even have to brief them on what I want to write about. They just use Pocket as inspiration, which is pretty cool. But as far as like all those open tabs, I think the process from what you're describing and everything we've been talking about is to determine if there's any attention that is being taken in our mind by that tab. Close that tab out, and the attention that needs to be chronicled or addressed or whatever, you put it into your trusted system as a next action.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. Okay. So I know we're out of time. So is there, actually, I want to ask you one last question before we wrap up. What's your legacy?
A world with no problems, only projects.
That's awesome. Okay. And like what, do you got any more books in the works that that are going to be part of that legacy?
Nah, I've said it all.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So if folks if they got inspired to make some behavior changes, to start putting some systems in place, applying your GTE methodology, hopefully, what is their next action? Where should they go?
Just go surf gettingthingsdone.com. It's a free newsletter. It's got cool stuff I write regularly. Then you'll see all the people around the world. We have franchisees and partners all around the world. 3,000 people a month are going through GTD trainings, all over the world in 70 countries. So you can go to the website, see where that is, and see other things to play around with. So have at it.
Right. So you could get the book. You could take a workshop from one of the people that have been trained in the methodology. Maybe even get some coaching, like one-on-one coaching from somebody who's been trained in the methodology.
Yep.
And maybe change some of their software apps that are more GTD friendly, and all that good stuff. Okay. Thank you so much, David. This was a lot of fun. And
sure, Stefan. Yeah.
Very inspirational to our listener that really want them to make some changes and apply the system, because it's been so life-changing for me. I know it'll be life-changing for everybody else too.
Thanks, Stefan. My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care. And listeners, do something. Get out there and make some behavior changes and apply some systems and get some more stuff done. This is your host, Stefan Spencer, signing off.